I know the title of this video may seem crazy, but it's absolutely true. I made $7,000 in a day at 17 from my personal brand and online coaching business. And in this video, I'm going to run you through exactly how I got to this point, from the mindset shifts I had to what I actually did, to what I learned, and also my overall reaction to this. So for some context, I started my personal brand on the 1st of January 2025, and I had some previous experience in advertising and content and sales in general from 2 other agencies that I had ran. So I started my personal brand knowing what I was doing, or at least having an idea of how to actually post and make content. And because of that, it didn't really take me that long to see some good results. It took me around 3 months to hit 40,000 followers. I was getting millions of views, but I kind of started to realize that there was another problem. I was getting all this attention, but I had built an audience of spectators and not buyers, because when I tried to launch my coaching offer and actually sign clients, I couldn't get any. And that's when I realized that I didn't actually have a system to build a personal brand that brings in buyers. So I was building a personal brand that was only getting views, but no real intention of converting. So I sat down multiple times, re-systemized everything from my offer, my content, my backend, and made sure that everything was intentional. Instead of posting randomly to get views, I made sure to start working with a system that would actually grow my business. I invested over $20,000 to learn from other coaches and programs and mentors who were in their 20s making 6 figures a month from their personal brand and online coaching business. So I was able to learn from these people and get knowledge that was literally worth 7 figures, and it taught me so much to actually get me to the next level. I also spent so much time failing again and again, having so much trial and error just to be able to package everything up into a repeatable process that's been proven to work, not just from other coaches that I've connected with, but for me and the women and the clients that I actually work with. And now that I've been able to get to the other side and the next level of this breakthrough, I've built a personal brand that doesn't just reflect, my story and my identity, but also my mission and my passion to actually build my business to help women and coaches get to the next level. It's also gotten me to attract and convert clients from this system. I've started hundreds of qualified conversations with leads and potential clients. I have a system that gets me a ton of high ticket payments. I truly love working with the clients that I work with, the women that I work with, scaling this business and actually growing as a coach and a founder. So if you're a female coach and you're trying to build a better personal brand, watch until the end of this video, because you're going to walk away with so much value and have clarity on everything I did to turn my personal brand into a client getting machine, so you can actually have that system for yourself and actually grow your business to the next level. Now, the first thing that I actually did is I rewired my mindset for success. I learned this from my mentor that I paid $12,000 to learn from. And the first thing that he told me is that your business is not what determines success. It's the founder. And that's why it is so important to remove every single limiting belief you may have and to actually take care of yourself as a person. At the end of the day, your business is a reflection of you. So even having these small self-care habits that sharpen your discipline or that sharpen your abundance, that is so important. And the reason this is so important is because every single thing leads back to your mind. I remember visualizing this $7,000 day for so long, and the reason I've been able to get to this point is because I always had it in my mind. I understood what it took to actually get there, and I extracted this idea by implementing it with the right systems to manifest it into a reality. But you can't actually extract this dream and this vision and this idea if you have mental blocks just stopping you from actually doing what it takes. The way you take care of yourself in your day-to-day life behind the scenes of actually running a business and filming content is who you really are. And the reason this is so important is because your attitude when you're facing roadblocks or when you need to make a major shift is the one thing that will determine whether or not you actually get to the next level. The second thing I did to actually rewire my mindset is that I started focusing on the input instead of the output, because I had spent so long trying to tell myself I'm gonna get to $7,000 in a day, I'm gonna scale to this amount next month. If I don't do that, but that's not how it works. If you're not getting the results that you want, it is simply because you are not doing the right thing. And that's because the amount of money you make is a direct reflection of not just you as a founder, but also the systems you have, the value you provide, and the way that your brand is positioned to actually attract money. And that's when I told myself, you know what? I don't even care if I don't get to this certain result next month. All I'm going to do is I'm going to go out of my way to implement the right systems. I'm going to go out of my way to invest $20,000 to learn from other people who are in the next level that I want to get to. And I'm going to go out of my way to implement it. Instead of trying to fall in love with your goal and your vision, you need to start falling in love with the actual process of building. I started falling in love with building this business, with serving my clients, with building the best brand that truly reflects who I am and building the best program for my clients. And that's when I truly started to see results. Because instead of focusing on the output and what you want to get to, which is something that you literally can't control, you can't control if whether or not you're going to be able to get to, like 12K a month next month. You can't control that, right? But what you can do is focus on the input as much as possible that you increase the probability of you getting there. You don't know if you're going to hit 100,000 followers next month. You don't know if you're going to hit 50,000 followers next week. You can't determine that. All you can focus on is the input. And this leads back to the first mindset shift that we talked about, which is, removing all your limiting beliefs. Because when you are not getting the result that you want, you have to sit down and tell yourself, clearly what I'm doing is not working. Clearly what I'm doing is not working. So I have to find a better strategy to actually implement. And I love this quote to actually represent this, which is that if nothing changes, nothing changes. When I was personally stuck in the same revenue for around 2-3 months, and I had invested $10,000 into 2 other programs before, I had still paid in full a $12,000 program just so I could actually break through to the next level, because I told myself, if I want to get to the next level, if I actually want to scale this business even further, I'm going to go out of my way to do this, even if it means paying that much, even if it means going out and actually learning from others. Now, you might be wondering, okay, mindset shifts, everything, that's cool, but what did you actually do with your content, with your personal brand, and with your systems to get to this point? So the first thing I did is that I completely rewired my brand foundations. This comes down to your story, your offer, and your avatar or your ICP. This is single-handedly the most important step, and I get all of my clients to do this as the first step before we even get into content, before we even get into formats, before we even get into how to actually build an audience. Because this first step will determine the quality of the people that you actually bring in. And it's so important to have this dialed in, because this is your messaging, this is your positioning, this is how you actually position yourself to attract high quality clients. So personally, I went from actually trying to help, women in general, to getting specific and helping a more sophisticated audience that actually needed my help to scale their business instead of just somebody that was looking to start. The clarity that you have in your brand, in your messaging, in your positioning, in your ICP situation, their dream desires, and your way of actually connecting to that, it all reflects in your content. And the reason why this is so important is because when you have clarity on this, when you have clarity between who you were and what your actual client wants, you can make that connection. You can interconnect all these different things and create an emotional connection. Because that's what it's all about. When you position yourself correctly, you create an emotional connection, and that is what does the selling. It's not the DMs, it's not all these different things, it's creating an emotional connection. And you'll be able to do that when you have a messaging that hits and when you position yourself as the only person which really makes sense to work with. The second thing that I did is that I had a real content strategy. I went from posting randomly, not really knowing what I was doing, kind of testing different things out, to having a step-by-step process on how to create content that's been proven to work, doing the right market research, being able to track all my data to double down on what works, and actually follow everything in a way where I can be super intentional. If you want to get predictable results, if you want to have the right kind of clients in your audience that will actually buy from you, you need to be super intentional with the content that you put out. If you gave me a piece of content, I could literally break down every single tiny thing I did in that video psychologically and intentionally to get a certain result. You need to be testing different formats, and you need to be tracking absolutely everything. Because if you're not tracking what's working and what's not working in your business, you don't really know what's going on. Therefore, you have no control. And leading back to the first thing that I did, which was the brand foundations, this had such a big impact on my content. Because I have so much clarity on my ICP, the women I work with, what their situation looks like, I was able to reflect that with the content strategies that I implemented, from the formats to actually attract the right audience. The third thing that I did is that I optimized my sales system. And actually, it's not really a sales system. I just focused on the content. And that's because sales isn't done in the DMs. It's not done in the sales calls. It is done 95% in the content. When I had the $7,000 day, it consisted of 2 calls that were each 30 minutes long, 0 objections, 0 questions whatsoever, and straight up paid in full. And it's because when you have the right content dialed in, it does all of the selling for you. And when you actually reach out to people, all you're doing is giving them the green light to actually take action on what they know they need to do. Sales is not about objection handling for 2 hours straight. It's about removing all and every friction it takes to actually make that sale. And instead of having to sit on a call to, go back and forth and convince them, you do all of that in your content. Instead of objection handling on the calls, you do all of the objection handling in the content. When you dial in the system and when you start building your personal brand this way, you go from just creating content to building a brand and a system that literally brings you pre-sold clients. So the sales system comes down to having content that is so good that does all of the selling for you and being able to send DMs that give them that little extra push to take action on what they know they need to do. With all that being said, getting this result and getting to this point has taught me so much in terms of life, business, and especially this space of building your personal brand, especially as a woman. One of the biggest lessons that I had learned from this is that building your personal brand is the longest term leverage ever. It is the biggest asset you could ever have. And everybody has a personal brand. Everybody has a reputation. It's just about whether or not you're willing to optimize it to actually grow your business. And it's not even for business. It's not just a client acquisition system for your coaching offer. It's also the reputation that you have online, the respect that you have, the network that you get, the connections that you make. I've connected and made friends with so many people who are in their 20s making $100,000 a month, and so many wise people that have changed my life. So you have to start approaching this as an asset that's going to pay you. Most women and coaches treat this space as a side hustle where you sell a program and you get paid for it. But if you approach it that way, if you approach it as just something that makes money, instead of you building a real mission, you're just going to be working a glorified job. It's not a business. So you need to start approaching it with a more abundant CEO leader mindset, right? Instead of working for the money, instead of just trying to get paid, you need to start focusing on working on the systems that will make the money for you. And that comes down again to the fact that you have to start focusing on the input instead of the output. You need to fall in love with the process of building. You need to fall in love with taking risks, with investing in yourself, with going out of your way to do things to actually make this mission happen. And that comes down to the second lesson that I learned from this, which is that it is so important to be intentional with that. And that's because, for example, with content, if you don't implement the right systems, if you don't follow a real process that's going to get you these results, it can actually turn against you. As much as content can serve you, as much as it can give you all these leads and actually grow your business, it can turn against you and give you unqualified leads, and it can mess up your reputation if you don't learn to implement the right systems. And that's why you have to go out of your way to start learning what it actually takes to get to the next level. The first mentor that I invested in, I literally spent $5,000, which was all the liquid that I had. I had spent 2 years saving up just $5,000, and I had dumped all that in one day to learn from a mentor. And even with that, from that moment, I've spent so much more into more programs to continuously get to the next level. For me personally, it's because I got tired of my situation, because I knew that I was meant to be to the next level. I was meant to get there. The work that I was putting in and the passion that I had to actually grow this didn't reflect the results that I had. I remember when one of the coaches and friends that I sort of connected with told me they made $105,000 in 1 month at 19. That pissed me off so bad. And you have to do that because you have to realize that everything you want is available for you. You just need to go out of your way to get it. The money's already there. The clients are there. The brand is there. You just need to position yourself correctly. So I hope you got a ton of value and clarity from this video. And I want you to remember that if I was able to take my business to the next level and have this $7,000 day at 17, just by being intentional and going out of my way to do the right things, there's no reason why you can't. If anything I said today resonated with you or you have any questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram. I actually reply and I'm happy to help. And if you want to hop on a call so I can take a look at where you're at now, what's holding you back, and how to actually overcome that, you can book a call with me in the description below. And either way, I hope this helped, so I'll see you in the next one.